Mimic is the new science fiction thriller starring Academy Award-winning Mira Sorvino, the actress who shot to stardom with her breakthrough performance in Woody Allen's film Mighty Aphrodite. Now having mastered both comedy and drama, she ventures into the world of horror. The film was directed by Guillermo del Toro. Mimic marks his American directorial debut, and I am pleased to have them both here on this program. It also marks Guillermo, it marks his talk show debut as well, correct?
Yes, you're in the square.
Well, it's great to have you here, especially with her. Tell me what this film is about.
Well, basically it's a sort of a gothic fable that shows man tampering with nature, creating a new species, sort of a biological weapon to stop a plague, a booming plague, that it's killing children under 10. And basically the consequences of that tampering give you sort of a thrill ride for an hour and a half.
And how did you get her?
Well, let her tell you, maybe.
What brought you to this?
I was sent the script by Miramax, and
Miramax is everywhere.
They are. They are Big Brother, or Big Brothers.
Yeah. Big Brother.
Big Brothers
That's
Weinstein.
Right. Harvey and Bob.
Yes.
Back to Miramax getting you into this film. They send you a script.
They sent me the script when I initially sort of briefly heard about it, thought about it. I thought, oh no, this is way too dark. This isn't my kind of genre. I get frightened at these films, and I don't want to be in one of them. And then I just said, well, but I should read it. You know, I've heard good things about the director and names of writers. John Sayles, Steve Soderbergh were involved.
John Sayles wrote this?
John Sayles
was one of the writers?
One of the drafts, yes.
Yeah. This is John Sayles, a film director as well as a writer.
Yes.
And so I read it, and it started kind of, you know, piercing my skin with its tentacles. I mean, almost like the creature that Guillermo created in Kronos, this machine that sort of digs in and causes an addiction. This script was so fearsome but fascinating in this sort of subconscious way. I mean, as you're reading it, it keeps digging into all the things that bother you the most, all the things that you don't want to think about. The script is sort of bringing up to the light slowly. And I'm going through it, and I'm like, oh, I've got to go to sleep. I can't read this. And then I had to finish it. I couldn't go to sleep without finishing it. And that's always a good thing. When that happens, you're sort of like, well, this has some power to it. Now, maybe it's too dark for me. I don't want to do something so disturbing, so upsetting, blah, blah, blah. Well, then they say, just, you know, Bob calls up Mira, just watch Kronos. I'm going to send you Kronos. You're going to love it. Don't do that other film. Watch Kronos. And I was like, okay, Bob, but I think I'm going to do this other film. And he sends me Kronos, and I fell in love with it. I mean, I was like, this movie is incredible. It was so beautiful, so inventive, fascinating, and it was only halfway through it that I realized I was watching a vampire film. I mean, it's really has this sort of art film sensibility, but frightening and gorgeous and imaginative, and then ultimately heartbreaking. I mean, at the end of the movie, I stunned myself by just breaking down and crying. I mean, it was so beautiful and humane and touching. And so it kind of got me, and I didn't want it to get me, but then Bob's just like, listen, you got to meet Guillermo, too. I mean, when you meet the man, you'll know. And I was like, well,
he looks like a child, doesn't he?
He looks a lot younger than I am. But
the skin is very stretched, you know, the overweight factor.
So Bob says you got to meet him.
So we met, and we had this fantastic meeting.
Oh, yes.
For about 2 hours.
It was meant to be a 20-minute meeting.
Yes.
And it became like 2-3 hours, I think.
How do you approach horror films? I mean, there's something about this genre that appeals to you and something that you do differently than most.
Well, you know, I don't know how many people out there really go into the craft with absolute love and passion. I know that I definitely bring into it. A lot of people go into the genre not because they're fascinated about the possibility of doing a fable with really strange images and rich subtext, or I go into it because that's my chosen form of communication. I'm not doing this just because I'm on my way to doing a psychodrama. I just want to do this genre. That's what gets me.
It's the only thing you want to do right now in terms of what you do.
Until I die of
horror
old
films?
age. Yes.
You don't want to do anything else. Not a sweet love story with Mira.
I think you can do all of that in a film like that. I mean,
well, that's true.
No, you can.
Kronos was a sweet love story between an old man and his granddaughter in a way. I mean, it was
I think I can taste all the genres combined with the horror genre and make them revitalized and
Revitalized,
yes,
yes.
and have them acquire a new perspective. And you know, I do a story about an old man and his granddaughter. Probably people will fall asleep. But
Yeah.
if that guy is sucking blood,
You see, I don't get this. I
Yeah.
mean, you love the genre, and I don't.
Yeah.
Love the genre, but maybe there's some reason, and you didn't necessarily.
No, but I have to
But-
admit that some of my favorite movies from the past happen to be standouts within the genre, like The Shining
Yeah.
or Dead Ringers,
Right.
or these movies that, when they're done brilliantly, they have this incredibly effective quality where they just, you know, really stay in your mind and you carry them with you, and they've got fantastic imagery, and when they're done right, then they're really special because they're grabbing at our deepest fears and somehow dealing with them. When they're done in a sort of exploitive way, then they're a thrill for their audience, but they may turn off the general population. I mean, for me, they're too upsetting. They don't have enough humanity. They don't have enough hope. They're just nihilistic, and I can't take them. They're just too disturbing. But in a way that this is not 100% horror, this movie at all. This is a sort of a hybrid, just as our species is within it, of science fiction and suspense thriller, because we have a real sort of matched battle as it goes on between the human characters and the mimics that we create. So
it's also, I mean, when I say I want to do the genre, I want to do the genre my way, which is, by the way, extremely strange or different, I think. I think it's not quite like any other genre movie that you can see out there. It has a strange twist to it. I put every single detail. I try to be as careful as I can, and my choices are made very consciously. And it's just a different sense of craftsmanship, I think.
Take a look. Here's a clip, climactic moment when Mira's character and castmates are stuck in an underground subway car.
How could you do it? You take something, you make it like a man.
What happened?
Oh, the ensuing thing is rather good. I mean, it's like a siege.
Yeah, a siege.
A siege. It's sort of, it's like a foxhole sequence. The inside of the car is like a foxhole scene in a World War I.
Right.
Where they are trapped or a fort, Apache surrounded by the Indians. So there is a very heavy siege in which Mira does sort of an emergency surgery on one of the creatures that is rather shocking. I like to combine. I like the shocking elements to bring out sort of a humor into the thing, and by the same token, vulnerable, make the audience vulnerable. And,
vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make them more fragile to the horror. Humor or tenderness in the middle of a film like this is quite unexpected, and I try to use both to make the flavor of the film different.
You have any insects here?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Of course.
Yes.
We have to.
Large ones.
Yes.
Large ones.
Some hybrid roaches.
Oh, but of course, yes.
No bugs within bugs, hybrid roaches. Yes?
Yes. No, I've always loved insects. I think...
You are very strange.
I am a strange man. Yes. No one should look in my basement.
No, that's true.
I'm still safe. No, but it is they are fascinating creatures. They are so perfect and remote and well engineered. I admire that. We are not that well engineered, but we are soft to the touch. So it's nice.
Let me come back to your career after the Academy Award. Did you just sit back and they all came flooding in, scripts, offers?
yes, but it's still hard to find a great project. I mean, I think it's still, they do. Yes, it certainly changed the ratio of script offers.
When you win the award, then the next day your career is at a different place.
I guess so. I mean, there was a status that came from just being nominated that really upped my career. Like in the few months preceding the Academy Awards, just the fact that I had been nominated changed a lot. And then afterwards it changed more. And everyone always refers to it still. Now, I still have people coming up to me and congratulating me on it, even though another one has passed since then. And it's very sweet. I mean, it changed my career.
What do you look for? How do you decide about projects?
Well, that kind of varies considering it's sort of all based on what I've already done and what I want to do. And what I may have wanted to do last year is different from what I want to do now. And last year I wanted to try, experiences I had never had before. I wanted to play very proactive female roles. I didn't want to play girlfriends or,
Right.
you know, I wanted to do things that were generally roles reserved for members of a boys' club, you know, and Mimic is a movie like that. Oddly enough, Romeo and Michelle is a movie like that. It's a female buddy comedy.
Sure,
and
exactly.
that doesn't really
Right.
exist,
Yeah.
you know, and as silly as that may seem, and as much as people may say, oh, they're just playing two dumb blonde ditzes, that's not really true. We're playing two dummies, but
Right.
our sex and hair color is totally irrelevant.
And next, where are you in your head now?
Now I think I'm calmed down a little. I got some action genre stuff out of my system. I got to run and kick and fall and jump and shoot and everything. So I think I'm ready to do something more lyrical. I want to do something kind of beautiful, and I don't know what that is until I find it, or something just really super, like, just amazingly intense actress material. I want to be in love with whatever is the next thing I do. I don't want it to be kind of well, okay, this sounds like a good idea. I want it to be something that I'm dying to do because I'm very tired right now, and I won't come out of my little hibernation until something makes me. So that's how I
So,
feel
in
about
other
it.
words, somebody has got to come along with something that
A
has
role that
lots
really
of
says
incentive
that
for
I
you.
have
It
to
really
play.
motivates you to get out of wherever you are.
Yeah,
Fatigue
because
or...
I'm just ready for a rest. And
So how do you rest?
well, I'm an idiot. The way I rest is I start a photo project. You know, I'm doing a photo project now, just on the set of Quentin's movie Jackie Brown, and I'm just doing a ton of photographs, and maybe they'll turn into a book, maybe not. It depends on how they are.
Wait, I mean, you're being photographed.
No, I am
You're the
photographing,
photographer.
yes.
Is this a...
This is a long-standing
Because there was some
hobby of mine that I
controversy
love.
about you and...
Oh, that's a completely separate issue.
I know.
which-
You being photographed...
That's a completely separate issue, which if I can devote 1 minute of screen time to that, I don't know if we should or not. I mean, there's a few things that have been absolutely obscured by the hoopla
Well,
over it.
straighten it out for us.
Okay. Even the New York Times, which I was rather disturbed by the fact that they didn't ask me to comment on the article because they made the issue about the curtailment of an artist's right to use his medium in whatever way he sees fit. And a lot of the art of photography happens in the printing stage. And by retouching or dodging and burning, even in that rudimentary form, you can seriously alter a photographic image. And, you know, they're touting David LaChapelle as one of the great new masters of the form, and I have extreme respect for his talent. I think he's a fantastic photographer. However, we were in a situation where it was a non-paid photo shoot in which I was doing it, you know, consenting to do it with David LaChapelle, and I'm a celebrity, and we decided to do it as a theme that I was going to portray certain figures from Hollywood past. And David has a slightly offbeat, lurid sensibility to his work, and I was willing to go a certain ways down that path with him, but not too far. And we talked a few days before the photo shoot about what images I would portray, and I agreed to do Frances Farmer in two different situations, one in the courthouse and one walking out of the hospital. And I agreed to do Lana Turner after Johnny Stompanato was killed by her daughter. He asked me if I would portray the girl that was supposedly killed by Fatty Arbuckle, and I said no, because I just didn't want that association. And he said, okay, well, we could do you as Jane Mansfield or Joan Crawford. And I said, well, Jane Mansfield, I did Marilyn on television, and if you put me in a 50s platinum wig and 50s makeup, I'm going to look like my Marilyn. So I'd rather not keep doing that image. And Joan Crawford, I just prefer, that's not something I'm interested in either. I mean, she's, you know, a malicious woman. She was in her 50s when she had, you know, the Christina Crawford, and it's not, let's find some other mutually interesting image. Let's go for something else. Call me when you find it. He didn't call me. I show up on the set Saturday. We do the first two setups. The New York Times said that I didn't have any objections to the Frances Farmer setup in which the brain was being carried in a jar by a nurse. And actually, that was also something he added in after the fact that was never in the original photograph, and I didn't know would be there. So as I say, he has a slightly lurid taste, and you know, that's his taste, that's his sensibility. I would not have made a ruckus about the brain. However, then we get to the next location and we see a setup for both a Jane Mansfield photo shoot and a, you know, Joan Crawford one. And I said, you know, I'm really sorry, but we agree, you know, I told you I wasn't willing to do those. And this is a volunteer situation. I'm not being paid, I'm not a model. You know, and then this is a mutually beneficial photo shoot, but it's an agreement between two artists. I'm acting as his subject, but in a prescribed manner. I'm not clay for him to sculpt. I mean, if he had hired me as a model and the model said, okay, do with me what you will, that's a completely different story. So he agreed on the set after deliberation with about 10 witnesses, including Allure's stylist, who was there. The magazine's representative was there, and my publicist was there, Quentin was there, everyone was there. And ultimately, I said, look, I'll do this outfit as Judy Garland or as Marlene Dietrich because it suited either of those personalities, but I'm not going to do Joan Crawford. I said I wouldn't and I won't. And so he agreed and said, okay, we'll shoot you as Marlene Dietrich. We won't do Joan Crawford. And the makeup artist, we brought out my Marlene Dietrich books that I happened to have in my car, did this makeup, and posed me as Dietrich. And Quentin even did a few Polaroids with me. There was no little girl, there was no tree, and there was no eyebrows and mouth that were later computer imposed upon it. So the thing is, the issue is here that he lied, because after the fact, he decided, I'm just going to do whatever I want. I'm going to turn her back into Joan Crawford. She said she wouldn't do it. I agreed to that, but now I'm going to go back and do it my way. Well, there seems to be something very dishonorable about that to me. I just take issue with his dishonesty and manipulativeness, because, and he's made it an issue like I'm trying to stop his creative rights. I'm not trying to stop that at all. But then again, I don't have to be shot in a photograph if we don't agree sort of on the way, the general idea of the photograph.
But the nature of the relationship suggests a consensual relationship because it's not an employee-employee. It's not.
Right, and it's a verbal contract, which actually is a legal thing. I mean, there was a verbal contract. 10 people witnessed that it was not about Joan Crawford. It was going to be something else, and he gave his word, and his word obviously means nothing. And now he's created a big brouhaha that I am the enemy of art, and that is not at all the case. But I am the enemy of dishonesty, and I think that any artist who works with another artist should honor the other person's wishes, especially when they've been promised to them. And he did not pay me, and this was not.
So what's going to happen? You just have a chance to express.
Well, I'm just actually rebutting what appeared in the New York Times, and I was just rather perturbed that the writer, started making implications. No one seems to know why Miss Sorvino did not want this, or why she didn't object to the brain in the jar, but she was like. You didn't even ask me, and she didn't ever lay out that it was a lie. Basically, he lied. He said, we're not doing that, we're doing this, okay? And, to the makeup artist, said, make her up as Marlene Dietrich. And then later imposed the eyebrows, the mouth, and presented me as he wished, and it said an homage to Joan Crawford. So, and the magazine, what I cannot believe, I have to say, I really find it very difficult to believe that they did not know about this, because my publicist was there, and their stylist was there, and I'm sure they must have reported back to the editor. Well, there was a little issue. It got cleared up. They're doing Marlene Dietrich. Right. So
I'm glad you had a chance to say that.
Anyway.
You are a photographer?
I am, and this is the funny side of it. And as I say, and I'll repeat it again, I really respect his work. I think he's a fantastic talent. I just personally don't think much of him right now. And I do think there is something also to be said. There's a larger issue here, which it's a weird, nebulous area of artists' rights and rights to intellectual property. The digital domain right now, when I see those commercials with Fred Astaire with the vacuum cleaner, they bother me so much.
Me too.
That was such a fantastic scene, and I think he would turn in his grave to think that he was being used to market vacuum cleaners. And that's something that, as an actor, your image is sort of part of your work. What you've put out on film, what I'm putting out, my performance as this character, as Susan in Mimic, could somehow be lifted digitally and put into a completely different scenario. They could get a hold of other takes. They could put together their own movie. And that's a weird thing. And to a certain extent, there should be some laws protecting your rights to your own image.
There's some work being done towards that.
Yeah, there is. And that's the larger issue. And I'm not sure exactly what the law says about that now, and I'm interested in finding out more about it. But this is not a personal vendetta.
What's the status of the film business in Mexico? And are you doing anything to make it, change it, to make Mexico even more of a film place?
Yeah, first of all, I think, I define myself as a round-trip ticket filmmaker because I live over there and I plan to continue living over there.
Yeah.
And right now we're in a pretty sorry state because the entire country collapsed economically. Right. So what I have done gestions in many of the fronts about the film industry. I was quite insistent on Jim Cameron being able to think about Mexico for his construction for the studios for Titanic. That ultimately led to that construction because I helped into that coming to happen. I am right now co-producing a film for one of one of the foremost young filmmakers in Mexico, called Carlos Carrera, a film called Bewitched.
So the answer is you're doing everything you can.
Everything I can.
To make Mexico even more prominent in the
yes.
world. Much success. Great to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome back anytime. We'll be right back. Stay with us.